And hey, everybody, welcome to episode 9 of the Paws Up Podcast, your source for all things FIU Athletics. And as you can see, we got a good one here today, celebrating the 9th episode of the show, getting really close to number 10. Here we have with us today is none other than the voice of the FIU Panthers, AJ Ricketts. How's it going, AJ?
Really well. Thanks for having me, guys. Looking forward to this. Should be always fun to talk shop with FIU.
Oh, absolutely. And we've had a lot of great guests on the show, all coming from all different walks of life. Of course, all being in the same vein of covering FIU athletics in one way or the other. We had the head coach for the soccer team, Kyle Russell. We had the athletic director, Scott Carr, and now we can bring someone from the ESPN broadcasting side of FIU athletics, which is very big. And so let's just jump right into it, AJ. So to clear the room for those who are unaware, AJ Ricketts is the ESPN play-by-play broadcaster for FIU athletics. You cover football, basketball. I know you also do a bit of soccer here as well. So just for the record, how many broadcasts and shows are you actively working on right now?
It always gets a little busier next month. Typically January can kind of settle into a nice rhythm with basketball, right? Because the conference schedule is usually Thursday, Saturday home, Thursday, Saturday on the road. So you're out of town Wednesday through Sunday. The February, March, crossover season always gets a little bit tricky there when, you have baseball enter the fray. I do soccer on the side as well, and some ACC network extra assignments too. So things get busier in February, March, but man, it's fun. I wear makeup and talk about sports. I can't complain about it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely not. And so again, AJ doing quite a lot, and we'll come back to the class, the class that you're teaching at FIU. We'll come back to that later. That's its own separate thing. I know Kevin's got some interesting questions for that moving forward, but
yeah.
So something that's really cool, AJ, is that as you go and travel with the team, go to these games all over the country, it means you have a great sort of resume of states and cities that you've been to across the country, which I think is super cool. So I'll let Kevin take it away for this one.
Sure.
Yeah. I just want to ask you, what's been your favorite city that you've broadcasted at so far in your tenure as a broadcaster?
It's a great question. There's different reasons for enjoying different trips, right? Like a lot of times when I go to North Carolina, there's some mini reunions from my time when I anchored and reported in North Carolina. So whether it's Charlotte or Raleigh, able to catch up with some friends, run on the old trails and running routes I used to do and have fun in that regard. A lot of the cities in Conference USA or towns in Conference USA are close to fun cities. Like Murfreesboro is pretty close to Nashville, right? Rice being in Houston, North Texas, the Dallas area. So you get some fun trips with that. It's an interesting league in terms of travel wise. And I know we're going to add some new ones next year. I'm kind of looking forward to the Liberty trips, Lynchburg, kind of old Virginia, maybe some good breweries up there. Who knows? But every trip's good. UTEP was interesting. You're so close to, I think Juarez, Mexico. I did a 5K and part of the route was you could throw a rock and it'd be in Mexico. You're so close to the border. So that was intriguing as well. So there's some good road trips in league play, no doubt about it.
Yep. So a question I really wanted to ask you as well. Yeah. You've had the pleasure to cover a lot of great events in FIU, some of the biggest events in FIU athletics history, because FIU, at least football wise, of course, it's a very young program. I'd love to know, regardless of if it's FIU or not, what is, in your opinion, the greatest sporting event you have ever called?
The greatest sporting event I've ever called. Let me follow up with you here in terms of my enjoyment of it or the grand spectacle of it.
Let's go for both. Let's go for a nice combination here.
I don't know. Maybe honestly, you might have to combine both with it's hard to stray away from 2019, November 23rd, right? In Marlins Park. I saw a random YouTube video the other day. It was like the greatest moment in all 130 FBS schools history. And I just clicked on it and scrolled to where FIU was. And it was that Anthony Jones 28-yard run that dash to the end zone that sealed it in the fourth quarter. I was just instantly transported back to Marlins Park for that. And I think anybody who's an FIU fan really identifies with how fun that game was. So I'd have to, maybe it's the easy answer in that situation. I mean, I've been lucky, go back to when I was student radio, to call games in some pretty awesome venues like Madison Square Garden for the NIT championship, the College World Series in Omaha. But in terms of since I started here at FIU, that day in Marlins Park was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. It's the easy answer, but there's no doubt in my mind it is the correct answer.
I think it's an easy. There were, the NCAA tournament for our soccer team is always a lot of fun too. We're usually in it, and we're more times than not we're hosting. I still remember Paul Marie's goal, I think against Omaha in 2017 to get to the second round of the NCAA tournament, and the joy around FIU Soccer Stadium. The line was, out the stadium well into the game. That's a scene that's starting to replicate itself more often as you get to late November and FIU Soccer's in the tournament. So calling those tournament games and there's a little bit more on the line is pretty fun too. And we had the longest shootout in NCAA history. I don't know if I didn't realize that at the time. But that was the longest game in NCAA soccer history, and we got to see that at FIU and win a tournament game. So you never know what a game will bring you. So I have to add that one as well.
Mm-hmm. All very good picks, and that soccer match, man, that was definitely special for all the right reasons. Yeah, the weather effects, and then of course and it just, there were so many factors that made that game remarkable.
Oh yeah.
So AJ, let's talk about the state of FIU athletics, because
sure.
You've been here for 6 years. You've now seen multiple athletic directors, multiple coaches for some of the biggest programs in FIU. We're in year 2 now of the refresh for FIU athletics. We'll say that. So as you've been with the FIU brand for a while now, how do you believe Scott Carr has done with giving this university's athletic program a fresh face for the future?
Well, the two terms I think of are vision and synergy. Kirk Herbstreit alluded to it on College Game Day once, and I thought it was a great point. To have a successful athletic department, you need alignment from the president, the athletic director, and your head coach. All head coaches, but particularly your football head coach, which drives a lot of revenue. And you go to the basketball games, you go to other games, you see Scott Carr and Mike McIntyre together. You see President Jessel and Scott Carr together. There's a synergy. There's a vision for what FIU athletics can be culturally. The master plan that's coming out soon. Scott, it was on here before talking about the university strategic plan moving forward. There's now capital campaigns going on in the athletic department to help drive revenue, to help identify fundraising stakeholders. So just all across the athletic department, there's a lot more synergy in terms of actual other tangible things. You have a beefed up social media and video department. There's been a recognition of the importance of that, and I think a lot of FIU fans see that game after game, win after win. If FIU gets a win, you're going to see some pretty cool content.
Yeah,
on social media. There are investments being made now broadcast wise, so I'm certainly appreciative of that, which will allow us to present a very professional, hopefully, product moving forward. So, but I think the biggest thing is just having a vocal voice that takes pride in FIU and what FIU can be. There needs to be ownership from FIU administration, but more importantly, FIU supporters, right? Students. If you go to FIU, you should want to represent them to be a part of it. It should be a place you feel and not just a place you attend. And so the way they're going about things here culturally, I think you're starting to see more of that, and hopefully that creates a really positive experience for everyone around the program.
Yeah, for sure. AJ, I wanted to ask you about the school down the street, UM. What would you say are maybe the biggest differences when it comes to the athletic program right now with UM and FIU?
It's interesting. Like, I always think comparing FAU and FIU are, the more tangible rivals, but it's always, anytime you can beat that team down the road, it's always a thing. And FIU certainly done it a number of times across the sports board. It's hard to compare, Kevin, because of just the differences in revenue, right? And so that translates to just differences, whether it be, fan experience, or, player introductions, lights flashing on and off, right? Well, right now we don't have the lighting set up, so that's something we can't do. But it's tough to compare from the surface. You have to operate a little bit differently. But look, you go to FIU games, that whole lower bowl is filled with students, right?
Yeah.
And that's been comparable to some Miami non-conference games, the amount of students that were attending the student section. They've got it going now with conference play and having a good team this year. But there's fan student support at FIU. You saw the football games too. It's some student attendance records for the past couple of years. I think the first two games we had more people than all of last season combined, right? Yeah. So when you talk from a athletic perspective, a fan perspective, there's just going to be some inherent differences. Miami has decades more precedent to work with, and obviously the national championships and what goes with that. But as FIU keeps building, you keep winning. Hey, you go back to 2010, 2011, you look at some of those FIU games, they're sold out. There were events. There was no empty seat at Ricardo Silva. I remember being a freshman in Miami, and there was an FIU Duke game. I think it was homecoming. I was trying to get. This is what makes me feel the most old. There were no Ubers or Lyfts in 2011, so I was trying to find a taxi or a buddy to drop me off at FIU, so I could, because I knew that was an event. That was the event in town that weekend. So FIU can and has and can continue to be relevant in the Miami spectrum, the city of Miami spectrum, moving forward. But I think it more important, FIU should focus on and be proud of FIU, and not so much just looking down the road. It needs to be an FIU centric thing.
Mm-hmm. And I'm happy you mentioned how packed the Ricardo Silva Stadium was years and years and years ago. And there is something that I know you can't look over, and none of us can look over. It's the inconsistency of attendance at FIU sporting events. Of course, not just at Ricardo Silva Stadium, but sometimes you'll have plenty of empty seats at a baseball game or basketball game. But at the soccer matches, the place is jam packed. Right. What ways would you yourself go about? Do you feel would you go about getting more students into the stadiums? What ideas do you think would work that you believe Scott Carr and the rest of the athletic team should do if they're not already doing?
Yeah, some of it certainly needs to be organic, right? You'll never get a convert of thousands of fans just by doing giveaways, and I think our administration knows that. There's a time and a reason and place for that, but you can't just, I remember like 10 or 15 years ago, it was, come to the game, get a free Amazon Kindle or tablet or something, and everybody would just go for that and leave. It didn't generate a feeling. And being an FIU. How I think is a great example, Jake, is Grand Canyon University. Okay, there's a great article in The Athletic that was put out last year, but I still remember some bits and pieces of it. But Grand Canyon's, it's a huge university, just like FIU. Has a large commuter population, but has a large online segment of students, but also has more and more dorms on campus as well. They sent athletic department reps to Duke to study them, talk with their administration, to say, hey, how do you kind of did you generate this kind of atmosphere and sustain it year after year? And it's, whether it's, identifying a ridiculous song that students just somehow grasp onto and it becomes a tradition. Like at Duke, it's Every Time We Touch, which is just a ridiculous song, but when they play it every game, the fans go crazy. So Grand Canyon found their own kind of song for that. It's a tradition now there. Every game before the game, there's some sort of party or festive thing out in the plaza, and then the students are fired up and ready to go inside. It just became very organic, and it became the thing to do on campus. Hey, basketball, we're there tonight, and that's just one example. But I think this administration knows you've got to engage with students. Like Saturday, I thought was a great example. It was Pike night.
Yep.
Right. It was an awesome atmosphere out in the plaza pregame. Had a reserved section for them. I wasn't turned around the whole time, but I think for what's percentage of the game in their section, the Pike students were standing. I know the FAU game, I'm not sure if it was Pike, but there was people behind the FAU bench that were FIU students. They were standing the whole game. If that translated to all the students in the lower bowl, I think everybody would have said that was an awesome time. Let's go back, like stand and cheer and support and feeling like a real college basketball environment. Yep. It's little by little. It won't all happen at one time, but I think you're starting to see willingness from students to come out and be a part of something. And it goes back to what I said at the start. It's you want to make it a place you didn't just attend a game or go to class, but it's a place you feel something about. The more students that are living on campus, I think that helps too, because when you live in a place, you go to bed there every night, you're walking around campus every day, you inherently will feel more pride about that place and want to participate in more things around campus and be a part of it. So I love having Tamiami Hall up now because I think that certainly contributes to campus pride as well. So it's not a one game, not a 1 year thing, but hopefully over time we can kind of continue the trend that's going on right now.
Mm. Yeah, and I like that you mentioned FIU football because that's a program that is growing. I mean, we saw last year 4 wins. Yeah, the record doesn't look nice, but after just 2 years where they won 1 game, you notice that fans started coming out a little more and more and more, and hopefully next year it's a lot more packed with the expectations that you can mention that the football team has, AJ, and that's kind of where I wanted to get to next. Start talking a little bit about the football program. Sure. You've been calling football for a very long time for FIU. At this moment in time where FIU is, especially after the recruitment and all that stuff that they've gone through their offseason, how do you feel about the football program, the state of the team, and do you think it's heading in the right direction at this moment under Mike McIntyre? Oh,
nothing but relentless positivity right now for FIU football. I mean, you say 4 wins, but I think everybody sees the trajectory. It's the number 1 recruiting class in conference play coming off those 4 wins, right? And those 4, that could have been more than 4 too, coming off just a year in which it was rare to be competitive. I think the recruits certainly see the energy that Coach Mack has, his track record of turning around programs, the investments that are being made. Obviously there's the emphasis, as there should be, on keeping South Florida kids home, on going into the portal. South Florida players that may have gone to Power 5 programs, but now they don't want to spend winters in Nebraska anymore. They don't want to be away from family in the cold weather. They want to come back and play a bigger role and be with their parents and family members. So I think that the staff has done an awesome job. You see essentially every coach back. There's a mission, there's a goal. It was tough how the way things ended with Coach Davis, and he'll always be a great friend, and I'll always support him. And he did a lot of great things for FIU, but there was that reset, and now it's exciting to see what the team could do next year. It's not going to be the easiest schedule, right? Mm-hmm. I remember UConn was put on the schedule last year, and they were coming off a really tough few seasons, and then had a breakout campaign, 6 or 7 win season, and now that looks like a tough game on the road, right, next year. So New Mexico State, when we played them, they were having their struggles, and kind of the same thing as UConn. They ended up in a bowl game, right? So you never
won it too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Heck of a turnaround for them, and we won that game on the road. Our defense looked fantastic. So we had a win over bowl team this year. So I think it speaks to that kind of validates some progress. So we were hanging on with UConn. We just couldn't get the offense going that day, but it wasn't as if we were embarrassed in that game, and that was a bowl team too. So I'm certainly very encouraged, and there are a lot of things to be excited about moving forward.
And before Jake gets to his question, I want to ask you, I don't know how much of the recruiting class you've looked into, but what are your thoughts on that class so far, highlighted by Keon Jenkins, who will maybe be an FIU legend if everything goes well for the guy.
Yeah, how fun was that when Coach Mack was yelling "lights out" at the press conference?
Yeah.
You could tell he was a little.
Lights out! Lights out!
Had it ready? No way. He had it ready.
It had to happen once this episode.
That was not scripted, everybody. That was well done. You're like the Dan Levitard show producer. You ready for the?
I had it ready. I had it queued up here.
Wow, yeah, you might have to give them a shout. I mean, we have to show that clip. You're ready to go. Well done. Impressive. No, he certainly highlights the class. Now, he'll have to earn his opportunity, right? Yep. Nothing's handed to anybody. I know he's a really highly rated recruit. Had a chance to go to Auburn. Great when Grayson James was playing at his best this year. He brought a lot to the table. I know Hayden had 4 interceptions in that game, but I will never say a bad word about that game. From how hard it is to come in. I think he's thrown for 50-something yards all year. You haven't ever been really a factor, had meaningful snaps in your FIU career, and then you come in that game and lead a comeback and throw some unbelievable passes. Like that showed what he can do and the level of vision and talent he has. So there's it's not going to be the keys to the car aren't going to be just handed to a true freshman. No doubt about that. But certainly his pedigree would lead anybody to be excited about that. So, excited to dive more into the class. I think the second signing day is coming. It's interesting how the first signing day has kind of become like the main one now.
Yeah.
Interesting to see moving forward. We keep doing these 2 signing days or just do one and you can sign after. It'll be interesting. But yeah, really fun times coming up since with the new crop of players.
Yeah. So it's been a while since the Bahamas Bowl, which I do believe you were at, AJ. Right?
Yeah.
How close do you think this FIU roster is to not only making a bowl game like the Bahamas Bowl, but even coming out as winners?
Well, I think it can be close. You saw those 2 years, right? How quick a turnaround can be. When Butch got here his first year, the team, no one on the team had been to a bowl game, and the very next season they had 8. The very next season it was a school record 9, and it was quick. Obviously Coach Mack had to start at the hard reset, and really hard to go from 1 to 6 or 7 wins and replicate that. But you see it all the time. It's not particularly unprecedented, especially now. Like now that they're coming off 4 wins in the number 1 recruiting class. I wouldn't be awfully surprised to see that jump being made 4 to 7, 4 to 8 or 9. But every Conference USA school, if they get to those 6, 7, or 8 wins, those are the kind of bowls that they're the typical the association is with the conference, and the Bahamas Bowl or Hawaii Bowl or Serve Pro or there are a couple in Orlando. So it's by all means, I wouldn't say it's a something out of the question.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And all right then. So now this is your moment, AJ. If you have any early predictions, upsets, or shockers that you feel like fans should know about for this upcoming football season, what are they?
Well, I remember telling Billy Gill and Mike Ryan that I go in every season think we're going 12-0. I believe we're winning every game. I got faith in the guy. There's never a game I'll go on a public spectrum and say, I don't know if this is going to be ours. So, but I'm looking at the schedule right now. La Tech in that August 26th game, starting on the road in a conference game, immediately something's on the line, right? Liberty has obviously poured a ton of money into their program and probably spends more money on athletics than anybody else. Once they join the conference, their spending on athletics will surpass anybody else. So it's going to be a tough game. Luckily, we'll have them at home. If you wanted me to give the hot take, right, we'll beat Arkansas at the end of the season. We'll upset them. But I don't want to go giving any spicy take just for the heck of it. But there's going to be situations which could have an eyebrow raising win, right? And Arkansas is certainly the biggest one of those. How fun would it be to get Western Kentucky back after that 73-0 loss? we finished with them on senior day. I mean, the video of us losing on YouTube, I just scrolling on it, 29,000 views. A lot of people are like, oh, when it got blasted that game, how fun would it be to have a video next year? Like, hey, we got them back in that game. Kind of speak to the turnover of and improvement of the program one year to next. So there's gonna be a lot of opportunities to have those eye-popping wins. But I believe in the guys. Every game, we're winning every game. We lost 73-0. I said on to New Mexico State. I believe in the guys. We got to win the next week. So it'll be a fun season.
All right, so I want to move on to basketball, which we were both out there on Saturday. The team is currently 11-11, just entering a huge stretch in this season. What have you been most impressed by the basketball team this season, and what has disappointed you the most so far?
Yeah, I think it was so tough to bounce back from that 0-3 start in conference play and just will themselves to those back-to-back wins against Charlotte. Charlotte was one of the top 3 teams in the conference. It was looking really good when we hosted them that game and just able to fight and claw to that win. They're so hard to score against that defense, which is predicated off Tony Bennett's Virginia pack line defense. It's so hard to score against, and for us to do enough was awesome. And then parlaying that into the win against an NCAA tournament team a year ago, the nation's leading scorer, just finding a way to shut him down. Oh yeah, you had 2 freshmen checking the nation's leading scorer the whole game and holding him to a 1-for-8 shooting night, like the nation's leading scorer. When we started this season, there were guys dropping 30-point games on us game after game. I think a guy from Florida National, he was either Florida National, Florida Memorial, whoever we played in the second game, dropped 31 on us in that game. So to go from giving up 30 burgers to an NAI opponent to shutting down the nation's leading scorer, that is talk about the improvement and the growing up of a very young team. And then obviously most recently this 3-game stretch has been terrific. I'm hoping we can parlay that into some more wins at Charlotte and UAB this week. I think they're getting a nice lift now from like Javante Hawkins. I don't think he has to do anything crazy, but if he was scoring I think 14 or so the last 2 games. Even if he can be a 6 to 10 point scorer per game and take care of the basketball and distribute like that takes a lot of pressure off like Denver Jones to score, right? If Nick Guadarrama can hit his outside shots like he's starting to in conference play, and he looks like a different player the last 3 weeks. He was double-digit score 18 times at New Hampshire and didn't get there until midway through this year, and now it's almost automatic that he's in double figures. So it's a completely different team. You ask about disappointments. There are certainly plenty of them earlier in the season, right? Going on the road to Howard and losing that game. Starting 0-3 in conference play and just not really having the identity. There were losses against Bryant that you could say that should have been a win. Eastern Michigan, held Imani Bates in check for a lot of that game, and then he got hot. That's the EMU team that still hasn't been doing too much winning. It would have been awesome if Arturo could have hit that shot against FAU with the whole crowd on their feet. I thought the fans might have stormed the court if he hit that shot. I thought we might have had a court storm for a second. That's not a disappointment as much as dang, that could have been awesome. But it's been awesome to see how Coach Ballard has got this group to continue buying in despite a less than ideal start. We started 8-1 last year. We did not start 8-1 this year. But we're seeing the team get better right now, game after game, and there's still a long way to go. We're in the smack middle of the conference line right now.
Yep.
So something interesting about the basketball team is that we were just talking about Mike McIntyre and his lights out first year, but now we move on to basketball and you have Coach Ballard, who at this point I guess you could consider him a veteran coach. He's been here for a few years now.
Yeah, it's his 5th year. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 5th year, right? So I know you speak with Coach Ballard quite frequently after some wins at the Ocean Bay Convocation Center. But just overall, how would you rate his tenure at FIU leading the troops for the basketball team? Yeah,
well, he's already acquired the 2nd most wins, right, in FIU history. So he has that to his tally. And I think, for anyone that might have any consternation about how the last year or 2 went, there needs to be a perspective viewed from where FIU was when he got here. You know, last year we finished with 15 wins. We lost the last 5, but we were at 15 wins with still some meaningful games left to play. We talked about this on the podcast I did with JB the other day, and I said, look, I felt like there was just a sense of disappointment, of frustration, of how the season ended and finishing at 15 wins. And there was some, real soul searching within the program for how to move forward from that. But you look at FIU before this staff got here, 15 wins was the roof. It was not the floor. Like, FIU basketball did not even get to 15 wins all that often. I think it was 3 times in the previous 18 years they had reached 15 wins. And last year when we got to 15, it was viewed internally as a disappointment. So if that's gone from the ceiling to the floor of what FIU basketball is, I think that speaks to the standard that they have set here and it can want to continue to have. He came in here and had a 20-win season right away. He was about to have another 20-win season potentially if we were able to play that game against Charlotte in the conference tournament before COVID ended everything. Yeah. So, and the 2020-21 season was a weird year for everybody. Duke didn't make the tournament that year. It was a weird year for everybody. But like I said, last year, 15 wins, they were disappointed with it. That's typically been one of the better seasons in FIU history. So I think he's done an awesome job. He's continued to learn what makes basketball in Miami a strength, areas to recruit and go after the kind of athlete he wants to recruit, the style, the system he has, and how to make this a successful program. Where there's still, if you want to try to analyze the buy-in from his team, just look at what they're doing right now in conference play. After the kind of there are so many teams. Well, if they start how they did in conference play, or even after non-conference, that it's not a pretty sight the rest of the year. And you see fracturing within the locker room. You see just going through the motions. But they dug in. They've dug in, continued to invest, and that's a hard thing to do. But that's the relationships he has with his players, his guys, and they're going to continue to fight. And so who knows what's possible here the second half of the season, but we're off to a really good start in the second half of conference play at 2-0. So yeah, I would tell folks to not, 15 wins, have perspective now. And I think he's done a great job here at this program.
Yeah. So just for those watching at home that are wondering, FIU's next basketball game is slated for this upcoming Thursday, February the 2nd, on the road in Charlotte at 7 p.m. Should be a fun one. And then after game against UAB, they'll head back home for a 2-game homestand later on in the month of February. So you talked about the second half of the conference stretch and how important it is for this team and their chances of not only getting into the Conference USA tournament, but making some noise in it. Do you ultimately think that this team, who we know has some great pieces like Turo Dean and Denver Jones, just to name a couple, is this an able team that can make some noise in the Conference USA tournament?
No, there's no doubt about it. I think, there's some teams that we match up better against than others, but I think everyone's really starting to find their role. Well, here's what I think is key, guys. Getting a top 5 spot in that conference tournament. Because the way it's structured now this year, after the Marshall, Southern Miss, and ODU have left the conference, and we're in this in-between year before Liberty, Sam Houston State, New Mexico State. Who am I forgetting? Sam Houston State. Did I say Sam Houston State?
Jacksonville State?
Jacksonville State. My apologies to the Gamecocks. No, in this in-between year, so we have the top 5 teams are going to get a bye in the first round. Mm-hmm. So huge difference between going in having to win 4 games in 4 days versus, hey, you get that 5th spot, you win 1 game, you're in the semifinals already, and you can start smelling the conference championship game. So we're right there, right behind the 5th spot. I think a game out or so with all this time left, and a lot of the teams above us still have to play FAU twice. So we've already got FAU knocked out twice. They've got their win streak, and but everybody else has to deal with them now. We're done. So that plays to our advantage too. So you go up and down the roster. Mo Sanogo and Seth Pinkney have proven that they can handle some of the most talented bigs in the front court in Conference USA, whether it's Jemison with UAB or, Vlad Golden had good moments in the FAU game, but he didn't take over the game by any means. And I think Mo has had a huge jump from year 1 to year 2. So that's been awesome to see. Petar Kravakovic is elevated his shooting. I think he has like 9 or 10 3-pointers over the last 3 games. He had 4, I think, in the first half at UTSA. You get a sharpshooter hot in the conference tournament. That's always a dangerous sight for other teams. Denver's playing like first team all conference. Coach Ballard said he's got all American credentials. How many guys? 20 points per game, 50% from the field, 40% 3-point, 90% free throw shooter. I mean, what else can you ask for? He leads the conference in scoring and conference play, actually. I think Walker has it overall, but since CUSA play began, Denver is actually the leading scorer in Conference USA. And, constantly is dropping 25 to 30-point games. And I think come conference tournament time, that's an aspect you need. A guy you can go to, can create off the dribble for himself, is an elite level shooter, can get you to the free throw line. At times, his game functions kind of like Jimmy Butler with his ability to get to the line and convert there and take over games. So, and then obviously Arturo Dean, he's making his case for Freshman of the Year honors at season's end. He's 5th in the country in steals, 1st in Conference USA. He's a pest defensively. He's a ball hawk, and that's an element that goes a long way in conference tournaments. So a lot depends on how we're playing in March and the matchups we get. But man, we played at FAU as tough as anybody has in Conference USA. Took them to overtime, and obviously they're the top team in the league right now. So I think that game proved, and really what we've done the last 2 games has proven. We can play with anybody and not scared to do that.
Yeah.
Good stuff there. And again, to everybody who's watching this on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, we can't thank you guys enough. It's been a fun one so far, AJ. And we've just crossed the 37 mark, which tells me that I think it's time for a news break covering all aspects of FIU athletics and just some FIU in general. So let's get right to it. How convenient that we just talked about Arturo Dean when the first part of our news break is talking about how Dean has been named the Conference USA Freshman of the Week for the 3rd time in the last 4 weeks this season that he's won this award. In 22 games of work this season, Dean is averaging just under 12 points and 4 rebounds a game, and he's also 4th in the nation with 55 steals this season. In addition to that, less than a week ago, it was made official that the head coach for FIU men's soccer, Kyle Russell, has signed a contract extension with FIU men's soccer that'll keep him as the coach of the Panthers up until 2027. Kyle and the Panthers will look to improve on 2 straight incredible seasons that included a Conference USA and American Atlantic Conference championships and an NCAA tournament appearances. And, of course, we know Kyle Russell very well because he was a guest on our show not that long ago. So congratulations, Kyle. We hope to see you for many, many years to come. And last but not least, about a week ago or 2 weeks ago, FIU Athletics announced an overall combined GPA of 3.39 across all sports during the 2022 fall semester. FIU student athletes have now posted 16 straight semesters with a department GPA of 3.0 or better. The swimming and diving team posted the highest GPA per sport with 3.7, and 34 athletes earned over a 4.0 GPA. So congratulations to all of FIU's bright students for hitting the benchmark once again. And that was your very brief FIU news break. So I promised we would go back and talk about the class. Probably, in my opinion, the best class I ever took at FIU. I'm not kidding.
Oh, I've gotta take that video recording and blast it out to the masses there. Make sure everybody knows the administration and CARTA. You hear this? I didn't pay him to say that. He said
yeah. You heard it here, Jay Gibson. My favorite class I took, it's something I wanted to briefly talk about, was MMC 3932C. That at least that's what it was called when I took. I don't know if it's under a new name right now, AJ, as it's sort of evolving right before our very eyes. And I just like you to briefly talk about it to the masses, to those who are unaware. How is this class, which you teach, it's how students can learn the skills of not just sportscasting or play-by-play commentating, just how to be professional in front of the microphone, in front of the screen. How is it evolving and getting bigger before your very eyes?
Yeah, well, I'm excited. It's in the fall. It's going to be part of a new minor at FIU in the school communication with sports broadcasting. So we'll get that going in the fall. We're on a spring hiatus at the moment. I think there was a scheduled mix-up from the school communication overlapping classes that nixed out both of them. Nevertheless, that's fine. We're going to get it back up and going here in the fall, and I think it's an awesome opportunity. I think it's very unique. Student radio programs may be a part of a lot of broadcast universities. But I think having an actual class that delves into the sports broadcasting side of it and the intricacies and nuances of play-by-play is not as common, right? And when we had it as a pod structure, we would have students who weren't even necessarily broadcast students in there, and so we made things a little more macro and easier to digest. Maybe just stand-ups in front of the camera and just an introduction to things. But we also have had students that are very, very interested in everything about broadcasting. I mean, Jonathan Mayer, who was a guest here before, comes to mind. And we really get into the intricacies and the little details that help make up broadcasting in that too. So it'll be part of the minor come fall. I'm really excited about continuing to grow the program. Tim Sullivan has been a great resource for our school communication. He was a producer at SportsCenter at ESPN in Bristol for a decade or so. And now he's helping with a lot of this as well. So I think it's an exciting time for students who want to be at FIU and get into broadcasting. And we do all sorts of things in there, from pregame stand-ups to mimicking post-game recaps, interviewing coaches if they were in a potentially foul mood and how to handle those situations. Podcasting, I think we did a podcast was one of your assignments, I think, to finish.
Yeah.
Everybody has to do a play-by-play assignment, whether it was volleyball, soccer, basketball, football. Everybody does at least one play-by-play game. And it was really cool. So, again, some students had no sports broadcast background and were really nervous heading into their game of, maybe a women's basketball game. They had never done or been to a game before. And by the time they came back to the next class, they were like, that was awesome. That was a rush. That was so cool. Like,
it's funny because I can vouch. I can absolutely vouch for that. Yeah.
And when they do a 2 or 3 hour broadcast that's live, then you feel a little less hesitation about standing in front of the camera for a 2-minute hit, right? Or a post game recap. That 2 hour broadcast builds up so much confidence moving forward too. So, I try to treat it as a team rather than just a class. Everybody has teammates that they work with, and I know that WhatsApp now. When I was in the master's program so I could teach at FIU. When I was in the master's program, I found out that was my introduction. Like, every class has a WhatsApp. Like, that wasn't the way when I was an undergrad, but and not maybe everybody would contribute to it, but it was like automatic. Like, hey, you just say who you are in this class. Well, our class has that too, but it became a tight knit group. I think there was one semester they all all got together, went to the Heat game themselves, then did a post game recap outside the arena, and posted it to the class Twitter page. Like, that wasn't an assignment, but the class was so tight knit. And I think that the assignments that we have and the games we call kind of facilitates that. You got to trust your partner when you're live and try to build the chemistry and rapport with them. So it's a unique experience, and I think a lot of people have taken the class, develop some friendships that will go beyond undergrad, and that's what it's about to me.
Mm-hmm. I can absolutely, absolutely. The amount of friends I've met in that class is awesome. Are you still going to be having some of the classes at that building in Wynwood that we
probably
went
not? Probably not. No, I wanted to try it out. I know there were some comm school initiatives going on there, and I wanted to check out the lab and I don't know, see how if I got into a routine of just going to a new place to eat in Wynwood after class or something. No, it's better to be on campus, especially because we want to do our stand-ups at the arena or the stadium, and have those opportunities. Or, we went over to football practice and the students interviewed Coach Mack, and everybody had to ask a question. Like, can't do that in Wynwood. I don't regret doing it there. I think it was cool to kind of introduce what we were doing to some of the staff and administration. Mm-hmm. But I think it's much more productive at MMC.
Yeah. I know. My man Kevin here is getting ready to head out to FIU, and of course he'll be choosing classes. So yeah. I would absolutely recommend 3932 as just a phenomenal class. It's fun, and it's as difficult as you want to make it, depending on how many games you want to go out and cover, how much work you want to put into it. But I think it's well worth it. Just the highest point was getting to go with Jonathan to the University of Miami campus to cover an FIU baseball game against the Hurricanes at what is it, like Mark?
Yeah, how cool is it that just calling games is class, right? You know, you're getting credit for that. I think it's pretty cool. Now I joke. I'm probably it's going to be part of the minor now. So Kevin, I might be grading a little tougher now. You know, it might not be an easy A for anybody here, but no, it's a good time. It's a good time. Participation and effort will always be the biggest thing in Prof. Ricketts' class.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So before we wrap up, I did have a couple other questions. Something that's been sort of on my mind and something I've wanted to ask you for a while now is your thoughts on that brand new Conference USA TV deal that was announced. I want to say about like a few weeks, about a month ago. Just sort of a lot of money for every university in Conference USA, and of course ESPN and CBS being the big primary stations broadcasting FIU football, basketball, and baseball. Just what are your general thoughts on it, and how you'll play into this new deal?
Yeah, I think it's 100% a really nice step forward for the conference. There had been a lot of consternation the last couple of years, and you'd see it on social media. The current TV deal was, and I think in the last 5 or 6 years, if you're a Conference USA fan, you have probably tuned in to ESPN Plus, CBS Sports, which is still fine. All right, so Stadium, Facebook has been a platform, YouTube, live streams on YouTube, and of course CUSA TV. BN Sports has had rights for a while. So that's 7 different platforms. It gets to be a lot for a lot of people. And now to have that streamlined, everything ESPN Plus, ESPN or CBS Sports Network, I think that's terrific. And obviously every school is getting about an extra $500,000 with that contract, and go a long way for tech and broadcast upgrades as well, as every school tries to elevate that. So I think that's good. Another facet of the deal, of course, with October, I think it's either September or October, might be September, the weekday games, right? Kind of replicating Maction. But I think that's good. It gets you on the national platform for that month. Otherwise, and honest, you're playing on Saturdays when it's obviously very saturated and it's harder to get a network time slot. You're probably going to be streaming. Well, we're going to get 4 or 5 games, linear television, which I think goes a long way in branding and putting it out for your program. And every school will have to adjust. We're going to have to market those Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe Thursday games. Try to get the best attendance that we can. I know that's a gripe of playing that certain kind of schedule, but the trade-off financially and exposure-wise for 1 month of play, I think that's worth it. So I think Commissioner McLeod did a great job with this. And the other thing too, so every sport now will be on at the very least ESPN Plus. So you want to watch FIU volleyball, it'll be E+. You want to watch soccer, E+, softball, baseball, it's going to be E+ now. So no more CUSA TV, extra login for that. The less than ideal player for it. Get to be part of ESPN graphics, music, production. So that'll be good as well moving forward. So I'm excited about it. There needed to be a good change with this deal, and I think the conference is taking some steps forward with it. So it's exciting. It's exciting, no doubt about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And just before we wrap up, AJ, just want to thank you for the time. Thank you for a great 49 minutes here. It was a pleasure having you. And I think this is maybe the most important question we're going to ask you here. As you know, yesterday, the championship round ended for the NFL, and we just got to know who's your Super Bowl pick, Kansas City or Philadelphia?
It's a great question. It's typically you don't want to doubt what Mahomes can do, right? But Jalen Hurts has been playing so well. The Eagles have had an an incredible season. I think Jalen Hurts was at the Syracuse game tonight. Syracuse, Virginia. One of his teammates went to Q's, took him to the game, but he's got the extra week. It's not Super Bowl week yet, so you can relax a little bit. I like to say, the team that has a little more experience at this juncture, would have the advantage, and I think they played. They're coming off a harder game as well, right? Been able to experience those stressful moments and get through it. You saw Travis Kelce's post-game interviews, how fired up he was. So,
yeah.
I think it's hard to doubt a team that just took down Joe Burrow and company. So, if I was a betting man, I think I'd have to go with Kansas City. But me saying that probably guarantees that Philadelphia will win the game. I've said Kansas City, so everybody else probably should bet the other way now, because my picks are not locks historically.
Fair enough.
No, I agree with you, AJ. I entered this meeting thinking, actually genuinely thinking who I would pick, and I was actually leaning towards Philadelphia, but you had mentioned just the ability of Kansas City to beat Cincinnati, and I there's no doubt in my mind that Philadelphia is a great team. Like, you look at their entire roster, you can't really find a single massive weakness. It's just a fantastic roster, but I don't know how much they've really proved to me that this postseason. They beat Daniel Jones in the divisional, and then they had to face a quarterback carousel against San Francisco, which it became a free win. When Josh Johnson came up, it became a free win for Philadelphia. I was more impressed with Kansas City than Philadelphia in this playoffs run. And again, Kansas City was a team beginning of the season that a lot of people didn't think. Some people thought they wouldn't even make the playoffs because of how different the team would be without key players, like, of course, Tyreek Hill not being on the team anymore. But never bet against
DNA goes a long way, right?
Yeah, you can just never bet against Patrick Mahomes. You can't. So I think I'm going to take the Kansas City Chiefs as well.
Yeah, I can't blame you with it, but again, we're probably underestimating what the significance of how easy it has been for Philly in the playoffs, right? Like, teams shouldn't do that in the playoffs, that much ease, but that's what they did. So I know the second game had the asterisk of the rotation, but no, it's going to be fun. I'll be ready to go at the watch party with some chips and guac, and we'll be interested to watch that and be fired up to see it. But no, it'll be a great game. By the way, Kevin, great job at the game. You were everywhere. You were writing the article. You had a camera, taking photos with your new camera too. You're a photographer on Press Row. I hope that Jake's paying you extra to get the extra content, not just the print. So make sure you're getting your due.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I wanted to quickly with the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes is injured right now. I mean, let's start off with that one, but he is playing out of his mind. Now, Philly's rested. Philly's very rested. They just destroyed San Francisco. They basically whooped New York. I have a feeling Philly's going to win this one. I do think Philly's going to end up winner. I will go different from you guys. You mentioned it, Jake. This team has no they just don't have a weak point right now. You look at that team, it's basically one of the best built teams in the NFL when you look at it. Jalen Hurts deserves more MVP love. He probably won't win it, but he deserves to be put in that MVP race. You have a great set of wide receivers, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, great tight end in Dallas Goedert, who may be one of the best tight ends in the NFL outside of George Kittle and Travis Kelce. So, and then that defense just basically claiming James Bradbury for nothing. You have Darius Slay, who you made the trade for a couple years back. You have to feel really good about that Eagles team, and that's why I'm taking Philly here against Kansas City. Now, will I say it's going to be a blowout? It will not. It will be probably one of the closer Super Bowls we've seen in the past couple of years. I think it's going to be one of the best Super Bowls we've seen in the past couple of years. If you thought the last Super Bowl with Cincinnati and LA was good, I think this one's going to be even better. Two very good offensive teams just in a shootout. And we'll see what happens with Pat Mahomes. I mean, he has a couple weeks to get healthy, and I think he'll be good to go. But I'm taking Philly in a very, very close game. I think it come down to maybe a field goal or we see an overtime game here, and we see the overtime rules being implicated for the first time in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Well, whoever wins, let's just hope it's a better affair than TCU Georgia, right, fellas?
Oh yeah.
I'll be happy if that's the case. Let's have a better game.
Oh, yeah.
AJ, you've been an absolute blast just to hang out with for a little under an hour.
Yeah.
We can't thank you enough for joining us, AJ.
No, proud of you both, Jake, my former student. Always great to see. This is a new dynamic. I still feel like I was just a student. Now I'm saying things like I'm proud of my former student. So it's still very, very disconcerting to say things like that. And maybe Kevin's a future student. So the FIU family here, very, very, very proud of y'all and all the work you guys are doing with the podcast. I know it's a lot of work to get a pod and prep for it and do all that entails with it. So keep it up, fellas.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
So again, to everyone who's been watching this on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook, we can't thank you guys enough. We're 9 episodes in. We promise episode 10 is going to be a good one. 10th episode. It's got to be special. No spoilers. No spoilers. Sorry, guys. But all I can say, it's going to be an awesome one. So for everybody who watches, everyone who will watch this later when we post on the Lemon City Live website, can't thank you guys enough. Have a great rest of your night. AJ, have a great rest of the night to everybody else. And until the next time.
All right.
Paws up.
Yeah. There it is.
Lights out. Lights out.
Lights out! Lights out!